Dr. McCoy is right in pointing out the enormous danger potential in any contact with life and intelligence as fantastically advanced as this. But I must point out that the possibilities, the potential for knowledge and advancement is equally great. Risk. Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
Oh, why are you all still asleep? Wakey, wakey, Erectagino and Bakey. I don't care. We are the women time forgot.
I want to fall on my butt and die of humiliation. I just can't with their midday energy before I even put my underwear on my butt.
He's dead, Captain.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million survivors of trauma having witnessed this current era of Hollywood and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. It is well known to most of the world outside of the people I'm about to discuss here that the most dangerous people in the world are morons who think they're intelligent. And that just so happens to be a perfect description of Alex Kurtzman and his on-crack team of repurposers who continue to outdo themselves with their very consistent incompetence. Because I just witnessed an episode that was, of course, awful, nonsensical, pointless, and excruciatingly dull while trying to come off as something deep and profound, all within a series that is, of course, awful, nonsensical, pointless, excruciatingly dull, and really dumb while trying to come off as something deep and profound. Now, if this was just any other show from Hollywood, you would just say, well, it's a day that ends in Y, but this is Star Trek, which at one time wasn't just a TV series, wasn't just a film franchise, it was an American institution. On that note, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I've given this a lot of thought, and this is not only the worst Star Trek ever made, it is not only the worst science fiction television ever made, it is not only the worst genre television ever made, it is the worst television ever made. And if you haven't seen it and you think I'm being a bit hyperbolic, well,
You have not seen what I have seen.
Kurtzman Trek is Star Trek for dummies, made by dummies. And it is what our good friend Will, the Critical Drinker, calls anti-entertainment. This time around, a character from a previous Kurtzman show, which has the unfortunate acronym of STD, returns in a show with the unfortunate acronym of SA. And yes, that's what I feel has been done to my mind.
Great.
In this latest episode, the kids are put through something that Paramount should give anyone who has watched this show: trauma counseling. And how are they going to deal with this trauma? No, not the viewers, the kids within the show. Well, they're going to theater their way through it. And it turns out our good friend Little Platoon had the best description of Kurtzman Trek. It's Star Trek for theater kids. Previously on Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
I'm Series Acclamation Mill, but in the interest of not being mocked relentlessly by my fellow cadets, I'm going with Sam.
Please repeat. I can't understand.
I was programmed to feel 17, but I've only existed a little over 4 months on cask.
I still can't understand you.
Sometimes I feel invisible, but mostly awkward.
Bar fight! Just like Cisco! For the embassies!
You're good.
I disconnected to Caleb. I think they're gonna die over there. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
Okay, you're okay.
Acting.
I can make myself permeable, bitches!
Oh no! What happened? Oh no! How terrible! That's just awful! How terrible! Oh no!
I got some good news. We don't have to jump in and start talking about the episode just yet because we have some breaking news. During the recording of this segment, just in case you're watching in the future, Netflix has revealed that they are backing out of the Warner Brothers deal, clearing the way for Paramount to own WB. What does this mean for James Gunn, DC Comics, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Looney Tunes, or Star Trek? Who knows? The only thing I do know is this is great news for theaters, and at least we won't get a black gay Batman. We'll probably just get a gay Batman.
This movie is for the comic book girlies and gays, so y'all better start reading, okay?
What the hell is even that?
That's enough of that. Let's get into it. Remember last episode? Of course you didn't, because most of you didn't watch it. Well, in the last episode, the first 3 minutes, everybody was sad, but then they went on spring break, and then everybody came back, and they looked pretty happy at the end. Well, now everybody's back to being sad, and this is all due to the unfortunate events on the USS Kawasaki, where 2 male characters died, and I challenge anyone to remember their names. It opens up with a monologue from the Doctor describing how everyone feels reviewing this show.
I was here the whole time, and nothing has changed.
Brett Cooper is back and fully recovered from her coma that was caused by her feminist empowerment scream that killed all the cannibal furries. The Betazoids gave her a brand new neural inhibitor, which will allow her to use her abilities without self-harm. Yet she is still very sad. They have also transferred her from the War College into Starfleet because somehow that will be less stressful and because they offer therapy. And this is due to the fact that her neural network can't take another episode, but once you see this therapy, I'm not sure this was the best idea. It appears that Darren Fishboy has reverted back into being a bully despite the fact that they spent the entire previous episode showing him go through his personal journey, if that's what you want to call it, and denying the prearranged marriage where he would be the co-ruler of the planet Cajones and deciding that Starfleet was where he wanted to be, mostly because that's where Jaden is. And this brings us to another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek. There's no consistency with the characters or the story throughout the episodes. It's almost like they're written in complete isolation. And I have a theory on this that we'll get to later. So in a scene where the kids are on the bridge in a simulation where they get destroyed, making me wish it wasn't a simulation, and after Tig Notaro speaks a line that unintentionally describes this show.
Congratulations. That was a spectacular failure of teamwork.
Apparently, the kids have been going through the trauma counseling that Admiral Vance had suggested a couple of episodes ago for 2 months, and it isn't enough. So they need a specialist, and it comes in the form of another STD character flaring up. Fan favorite Tilly. And when I say fan favorite, I mean one fan likes her. Played by pre-Ozempic Mary Weissman. This is what she looked like in the show. This is what she looks like now. Watch out for those side effects. And continuing on that hallmark of Kurtzman Trek with character inconsistency, Tilly doesn't even act like she did an STD.
Oh, you're all still asleep. Wakey, wakey, Eractigino and Bakey. I'm Lieutenant Sylvia Tilly.
In this, I wouldn't say she's any more or less obnoxious than she is in STD, just a different kind of obnoxious.
I'm on rotation in the Beta Quadrant with the third years. However, per the Chancellor, this class has been mandated for you, so you get me early.
And how exactly are they going to deal with this deep-seated trauma they have been feeling since the events of the USS Suzuki 2 months ago, except for the previous episode where they weren't feeling it at all? Well, you heard me right at the beginning of the video. It will be therapy through
theater.
Because only theater kids and Hollywood would think you could deal and heal from deep-seated personal trauma by acting like somebody else. Oh, my friends, it gets so much worse. If you didn't think that Alex Kurtzman and his on-crack team of writers was using Star Trek as a political platform.
Black Lives Matter, the NAACP. The goal is not really to promote Star Trek, but to promote these organizations and to use our platform to be able to bring greater awareness to these very, very important messages and places.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Well, I think we can put any questions about Star Trek being used as California state propaganda to bed.
What if I told you that theater is one of the most powerful tools for social and political change? Theater is statecraft. Statecraft is theater.
And yes, the people at Kurtzman Trek really think that much of themselves. But the good news here is nobody's actually watching it outside of content creators, and the writers aren't smart enough to make it effective propaganda. But they are very effective at A, putting you to sleep, and B, making parts of your body cringe that you didn't know was possible.
And for those of you still bristling with confusion and or resentment, I don't care. Tomorrow, we theater.
I did try to warn you, but also the awkward body positivity neurodivergent character from STD, of course, picks the awkward body positivity neurodivergent character from SA as her favorite.
Please, change my life, Lieutenant.
Favorite.
So the assignment is they all have to pick a play to help them deal with their trauma. This particular filler episode in a season full of filler episodes focuses on Brett Cooper and everyone's favorite, the body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam. They have a brief conversation and I understood half of it.
I'm not even up yet. I just can't with their midday energy before I even put my underwear out my butt.
Gonna be real, I watched that clip about 8 times before turning on the closed caps because I have no clue what she said up to my butt. She did say, and I quote, "I'm not even up yet, and I just can't with your midday energy before I even pull my underwear out of my butt." A quote that I'm sure will go down in the annals of Star Trek history. Now, I can hear you asking the question, why would a hologram need to pull underwear out of her butt? And why would a hologram need a bed? Both good question, but the nature of this conversation that I had to eventually read in closed captions was, they're both sad. After the credits roll featuring 21 producers, proving this is not only a show for theater kids, it's a show for wine aunts in Hollywood. All the women sit around and drink.
What are we having? Something with a proof.
And then we get this piece of exquisite dialogue, which is just essentially an STD reference flaring up again.
We are the women time forgot. Optimism is me paddling my frickin' canoe.
But mostly the women of the now incompetent matriarchy of Starfleet discuss how the kids are going to talk about their feelings.
It's not the load that breaks you, but how you carry it.
What?
And they dial the saccharin up to 11 in this one. The next day, Jay-Den decides to recite some Klingon opera where we get confirmation that Klingons not only have 2 dicks, they have 4 balls. And of course, this being Jay-Den, he talks about them being consumed.
They've been served the heart and the quadritesticles of their fathers before them.
Now he's doing this while he has a cold, so after giving a little bow, Jay-Den is sent to his room because he has COVID.
I am embattled with Jahmut.
And Jay-Den is gone for the rest of the episode, and normally I would be grateful for this, but considering what's to come, it makes me miss his brand of cringe, because the rest of this 1 hour and 4 minute episode is solely focused on feelings in space, and the play they pick is Our Town by Thornton Wilder, apparently the greatest American play ever written that I honestly have never heard of, and if anybody tries to shame me for that, they need to understand I really don't care. Now, this is a concept that Star Trek of the past could have made compelling, considering it was in the hands of real artists, but this one was executed with the precision of somebody wielding a chainsaw while simultaneously being electrocuted. Because I looked it up, the play Our Town is about cherishing the simple, everyday moments of life while we can, as humans often fail to appreciate them until death reveals their profound value. Speaking of that, it's those simple moments of human connectivity in a story that work as a foundation to hold the whole thing together, and it's the one thing the writers of Kurtzman Trek are completely incapable of. The discussion of the play is thankfully interrupted by Sam glitching out due to the phaser damage he received on the USS Nakatomi. Now, how did a hologram that was shown to be permeable receive phaser damage? They still haven't fully explained that. And now Sam is dying, and before I get anybody's hopes up, she survives. She has to go back to her home world of Cask with the Doctor and Holly Hunter, and the next 42 minutes of this 1 hour and 4 minute episode are focusing on the Doctor's feelings about living so long and losing so much, the body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam not being able to process her feelings, and Brett Cooper essentially being unable to process her feelings because they've given her rogue storyline from the X-Men, where she's feeling isolated because she's worried that she'll hurt people with her mental powers, where her classmates seem to be treating her like a monster when she ended up saving everybody with her feminist empowerment scream, and the only people she killed were a bunch of cannibalistic furries. So there's a scene with the class where Brett Cooper won't talk about her feelings. There's a scene in a shuttle where Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram, talks about her feelings to the Doctor, who won't talk about his feelings. And we get this wonderful piece of acting that's just so Sam.
You know what I want? I want to fall on my butt and die of humiliation. And then my best friend to make me feel better. I want to change my mind 6 times before ordering, and I don't even eat.
Are you stupid or something?
Followed by a scene of Brett Cooper getting drunk because she can't talk about her feelings. Then she wants to ride the brown pony with Caleb, who says no. And I know what you guys are thinking. Most dudes wouldn't say no in this situation, and you would be right. But I would argue this is the one case where a character in Kurtzman Trek was being smart, considering the USS Vagina is the most likely place to get a false Me Too accusation. And after he says no, Brett Cooper tells him to go find Genesis, and then she cries. After that, Brett Cooper goes back to her quarters and talks about her feelings with Genesis, where we get this profound piece of dialogue.
Now I'm just this, I guess. You are just on your way to the next you. Maybe we all are.
I am so deeply moved knowing that we are all going to become the next Brett Cooper. But if you are always on your way to the next you, and I am always on my way to the next me, who's the next I? These are the things I ponder.
Yeah? Well, if you were me, then I'd be you! And I'd use your body to get to the top!
Back on the shuttlecraft on its way to Cask, the hologram homeworld, Holly Hunter is talking to the Doctor, who's still trying to process his feelings while he's taking Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram, back to her homeworld so she can process her feelings. While discussing why Sam picked the play, I gotta look it up again. Oh, Our Town. And the reason why, considering she is probably about to die and hasn't lived very long, is it's important to enjoy the little moments of life, but they have to say it in the most pretentious way.
A moment, as it happens, is just a moment, but when it becomes a memory, blistering with context, emotion, that's when color suddenly erupts on stage. A way of saying it's the mundane things that
mean everything.
Well, I think I can do one better.
In Thornton Wilder's magisterial opus Our Town, the existential profundity resides in the poignant admonition to apprehend the ephemeral sanctity of quotidian existence amidst the exonerable march of temporality.
So the neurodivergent body positivity hologram named Sam is from a planet called Cask, which exists in a unique configuration of space-time due to its extreme gravitational gradient.
So time passes faster there. Every 3 days on Earth equals 5 years. One Cask.
And yes, that's how she acts throughout this series. Anyway, for every year that passes on Earth, roughly 608 pass on Cask. That's why it's odd when the Doctor says this.
How would your world perceive an ancient hologram who has spent his entire existence on Starfleet ships?
Well, they probably see you as an amoeba, considering that the Doctor is 800 years old, which means roughly 486,000 years have passed on Cask in his lifetime. So in truth, it really isn't that odd that he said that, considering the writers didn't do the math on this one. The last third of this episode is excruciatingly boring, so we're going to bang our way through it. Back on the USS Vagina, the kids are still working on the play to help them process their feelings. Again, everyone's still sad about the events of the USS Miyazaki. I'm not really sure why, considering half of them weren't even on the ship, including Brett Cooper's brother, and I couldn't even tell you what the guy's name is now through 8 episodes. And the only people that died that they may or may not have interacted with were white straight male and Johnny Spocksville, who most of them hated. And the people that would have been the most affected, the kids from the War College and Romulan girl, weren't even in this episode. And Brett Cooper is sad and angry because they transferred her from the War College to Starfleet because supposedly they had therapy against her will, and because everyone's treating her like a monster for saving their worthless lives. And not a word of acknowledgement about the entire crew that died on the super secret ship from the super secret base that had the super secret sonic weapon that they were going to use in space. Anyway, after Brett Cooper walks away in a huff, the kids get together later and decide to theater their way through their feelings that half of them shouldn't even be feeling. Meanwhile, back on Cask, Holly Hunter, the Doctor, and Sam talk to Orson. Is anybody going to remember Mork talking to Orson? I'm probably dating myself. And here we have another example of this show not being consistent with their characters. In the previous Sam-centric episode, Orson sounded like this.
We are contacting you for a report. If you disobey us, you will have failed.
And in this episode, Orson sounds like this.
We have heard many stories about you.
And apparently the makers of Cask cannot fix Sam and they just shut her down.
Series acclamation now. Terminate.
Now, before you get your hopes up, just a couple of minutes later, they go, just kidding, we weren't going to shut her down. We just don't know how to fix her.
We are not refusing to fix Series acclamation mill. We simply cannot.
The Doctor figures out Sam is broken because she doesn't know how to process all the feelings she's feeling, and the best way to fix it is to give her a white dad. And that's right, they retcon the Doctor in the show as her father, because on Cask, they can live 17 years in a little over a week. And in the end, they cured Sam by giving her a white dad, and the kids theatered their way through their extreme trauma and pain, all while traumatizing the viewers of this show and leaving them to work out their pain on their own. And for the second episode in a row, we get some saccharine music over a slow motion montage of the kids smiling and embracing, and we finally get a meaningful hug between Brett Cooper and Sam, two characters who have barely interacted with each other. And so ends the worst episode of Starfleet Academy, which just so happens to be the worst series within Kurtzman Trek, which is the worst Star Trek within Star Trek. And seeing that there's 2 episodes to go, I will say, for now, Lost in the Stars tried to be something deep, weighty, serious, philosophical. And when in truth, we got an episode that was ham-fisted, annoying, nonsensical, hollow, melodramatic, and just plain dumb. And it shouldn't surprise anyone that this episode was written by 2 women with no science fiction experience whatsoever, Jane Maggs and Gaia Viola. And no, writing for past Alex Kurtzman projects is not experience. I think it actually creates inexperience. But the big news is Paramount will be taking over Warner Brothers, and they have a lot of new toys now, including DC Comics, and I should probably dedicate dedicate an entire live stream and video on that one alone. And David Ellison and his consortium of investors will also have the distribution rights of things like Game of Thrones, The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and all the DC movies. James Gunn's having a bad day. Now, my preference was nobody bought Warner Brothers, but the best of two bad options is Paramount for sure. It's better for theaters, and for selfish reasons, it's better for physical media. The one place it's not better for is Hollywood. Essentially, it's a less grievous wound, because as with all mergers, there's still going to be redundancies and massive layoffs. There's a lot more to say about this, and I'll do it in a separate video. But what does this mean for Star Trek? I won't argue that it looks like the writing is on the wall and it's finally the end of Kurtzman Trek. But the biggest question is, when is that end? I guess I'll answer that question with another question. What would be an easier way to win back old fans and bring in new ones? Continuing Kurtzman Trek for the next 2 years with Strange New Worlds Season 4 and 5 and Starfleet Academy Season 2, and keeping Kurtzman Trek as canon as Paramount goes into the 2 proposed movies, which will either be a reboot, a retcon, or God forbid, a continuation, praying you can get past the brand damage and somehow get old fans back and somehow get new ones, or an intellectual property that hasn't just lost one generation, it's lost 2, or you take the hit, buy out Kurtzman, can Strange New Worlds Season 4 and 5 and Starfleet Academy Season 2, put all of Kurtzman Trek into the Kelvin timeline, and start fresh with either a new TV show, which would be preferable, or your 2 proposed Star Trek movies, and you do something crazy like have a crew on a ship going on a mission sometime in the late 24th century past the TNG, DS9, and Voyager storylines, all while rediscovering this thing called masculinity. The latter would be the easiest way to get back fans, and it would certainly bruise a lot of egos and cost you some money, but I would argue all of that would be insignificant compared to the overall value of the Star Trek brand, which, I'm gonna be real, has been damaged beyond all recognition. Time will tell, but it still remains astounding that Paramount spent over $100 million producing Starfleet Academy, and it is, without a doubt, the worst television show produced in the streaming era. Yet, as bad as this show is, the one thing that should concern all of humanity is that the writers of this show are allowed to drive, vote, eat with anything sharper than a spork, and walk around free among us without supervision because they are a danger to themselves and others.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.